tonight we have a very special guest that I've had on the show previously, but I'm always excited when he comes and is willing to share information and share his wonderful music. We have Curtis Harmon, one of the co-founders of Pieces of a Dream. He plays drums and he's he writes music, and he's just he's been out there for decades, and the music gets better and better, which is hard to believe. So I'm going to bring Curtis on in a minute. They're the creators of smooth jazz. It didn't exist before they started creating smooth jazz. So you're looking at an original who's updated and always current and always has something new to offer. So Curtis, let me bring you on and say hello to everybody. Hi, Curtis.
Hey, how you doing?
Good,
How's
good.
everybody? Good.
I was just telling everybody about the fact that you're an original and you're current. You're the creator of smooth jazz along with James Lloyd.
hmm
And over the years, you've always been able to update, maintain your music as being current and exciting and interesting.
Well,
And there's
thank you.
always a new twist to it. So
Thank you so much. We
yeah,
we try to keep our audiences riveted. So, but as far as being the creators of smooth jazz, I think we're one of the uh, I would say in the beginning, we helped to build smooth jazz because I think Grover was out there first. People like Grover,
right.
even Miles Davis.
I'm going to get to that. Yeah,
So
yeah,
was doing some smooth jazz before we came on the scene. It's just that the genre actually didn't have a name when we came on, when we started doing it. So I consider us to be, one of the pioneers of it, of that genre, of this genre of music.
terrific. Look, what I want to do before we get into talking about your career and pieces and where
Mhm.
you are today, I'd like you to first start off by telling everybody, what's cooking, what's going on. I know that you're going to be appearing in my neck of the woods. You're going to be at the Lake Arbor Jazz Festival.
Right.
So, why don't you tell everybody what's going on with you and pieces?
Well, we're in the midst of doing a whole lot of things. We are coming up with a brand new show. We're kind of trying to update pieces of a dream, sound, image, just about everything. So, but we've got the Lake Arbor Jazz Fest coming up. We're doing the White Night, from what I understand, and it's going to be a blast. Yes, Summer White Affair. That's what we're doing. So it's going to be a blast. We got some great musicians in the band now, and it's a higher energy show. So people will really love. Hopefully people will really love what we're doing. We performed in Philly for the Lynx organization, and at the end of the show, we had them dancing on the floor. So it was a great time.
Besides Lake Arbor, you have anything else coming up in the near future?
Oh, we got a lot of stuff coming up. Actually, we're working pretty much all soon. We got Miami coming up. We've got Phoenix. We've got Denver. We've got Pensacola. We've got another Philly gig at the Dell East in August. We've got we got Long Beach, uh, Baltimore. I mean, we've got. I could run down the whole list. But we got a whole lot of stuff coming up.
Well, good. If you send me the list, I'll put it up on the station so everybody can,
Yes.
follow your dates.
Yep. And we are currently working on our website also. So all of the dates will show on that also.
Terrific. Yeah, that's great. What I want to talk about, I kind of want to set the stage I'm going to kind of try to set you up a little bit, because I think I do want you to tell the story of how you started, with James
Mhm.
and I know you work with Grover. So,
Mhm.
but I want to first talk about the early '60s before you guys even came on the scene just a little bit. And jazz, and to me, and you tell me if I'm wrong because you're the expert, really. But jazz was evolving in the 1960s, and
Mhm.
there was some really cool people that were getting involved in. One had Coleman, Cecil Taylor. They were really out there doing something very different from what had come before, but they weren't integrated into the mainstream. And but who dropped right in the middle to kind of pull this all together? Miles Davis.
When I think of the '60s, I think of the like early bebop era, you know, and it actually kind of set the tone for a new sound in jazz. Okay, where it kind of integrated some of the sounds of almost like rock and roll into it, but the musicians were still using the upright bass, still using the the 4-piece drum set, you know what I mean, and the baby grand piano, if not upright piano. So, but it still was an updated sound from the early swing era. So, and then when we came on the scene, I think we kind of mixed it with more of an, I would say, R&B feel, more of an R&B feel. And so, hence, that's, when I think of Pieces, I think of us more as a jazz funk group, and not so. I mean, we're categorized as smooth jazz,
right?
But I think of us more of jazz funk because our sound is a little more edgier than smooth.
I completely agree with you. Yeah,
in concert and on records. I mean, we do have some smooth sounds like Night Vision, like Anywhere You Are, Caribbean Nights, Smooth Dreams, stuff like that. But when I think of songs that we've done, like Say La La, Mount Airy Groove, 454, stuff like that, that has a more edgier sound, I mean, even in concert, we're doing things like, we're integrating other people's songs, to make it fun for not just for us, but for the audience too. Like EU's The Butt, and things like that. So, because we want to mix in some of the stuff that people our age grew up with, to make it more fun, to make the concerts more fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, I guess where I was driving at, and again, it's just my take. When Miles came on the scene and he brought Herbie Hancock and he brought Wayne Shorter and Tony Williams. They were already doing their own thing, but they also been following Miles, and he kind of, in my mind, and I could be wrong. He set the stage for you guys. And I know Grover Washington Jr. was very prominent in your development, but
right.
I just see that as a transition point that opened the stage for you guys to do what you do. Now, if you have a different take, if you think I'm overemphasizing Miles, let me know. But that was my take.
Not at all. Because we've done, actually, before he passed, we did a couple of concerts with him. So
I know.
we were blessed enough to be on the same stage with him. So
that's amazing.
I remember doing the Playboy Jazz Festival, which was I think maybe our first really big jazz festival. And we were in company with people like Sarah Vaughan, Nancy Wilson, Miles Davis, Al Jarreau, he was either Mercer Ellington or Count Basie's band, one of those.
Wow. Okay.
And man, I mean, we were like, I think I was 18 at the time, and James was 16. So we've had a very blessed career to be with such people like that. I mean, but as we went through going through some of the years that we played, we've also played with people like SWV, Rick James, Chaka Khan. One of the people I really would love to play with that we have not gotten a chance to play with yet is like Stevie Wonder. Okay,
oh wow, that would be incredible.
That I actually really wanted to play with that we probably haven't played with. So but we've been in concert with some really big icons of music. in different genres too. So,
Yeah. Well, that's why. I'm sorry. That's why when you say you're kind of jazz funk, I completely agree with you. I always thought that the branding you smooth jazz, of course, it's a compliment because you're on the outset of the creation of smooth jazz, but you guys do so much more. You're so much more than just smooth jazz. So, in fact, let's go back to you a little bit to your roots. I want to play Warm Weather to kick this off, okay? And maybe you can set that up. Why don't you tell us about it?
One other thing, though, people didn't know what to categorize us as when we first came out because we started hits. Everything that was played on the radio was played on R&B radio from us. Yeah. But then we were hired to do these smooth jazz concerts, these jazz concerts, because when we first started, we came out playing swing. So, we were,
Didn't you guys have your first record released? You were still in high school?
Yes. Yeah. Actually, James was still in high school, and I was in college, first year of college.
Yep,
university.
So tell us about Warm Weather. Where did that come from? And that was your
Warm Weather. That was written by Dexter Wansell and Cynthia Biggs, everybody knows who Dexter Wansell is. He wrote Nights Over Egypt, The Jones Girls, and he's had hit after hit after hit. He was kind of like Philly's Quincy Jones, basically, back in the day. So, and Cynthia Biggs was a writing partner of his. And this was the very first single that Pieces of a Dream ever had on the radio. I remember we were actually borrowing one of our parents' car. And they said, cool, we could borrow it as long as we washed it and cleaned it up. So we were in the car listening to the radio, and the song came on the radio for the first time we heard us on the radio. And we just went off, man. It was like,
that must be great.
So great. It was such a blessing, man. And so that was our debut into the world of records and radio. And that was back in 1981.
81. Well, let's play Warm Weather. I love it. I've just been a fan of yours forever. So we'll play Warm Weather, then we'll have a brief talk about it afterwards.
Cool.
just you and me together.
Great track. Love it.
It brings back so many memories. You know, we when this song came out, you know, we were really young. So we hung out at the Belmont Plateau, where that's the part that the Fresh Prince mentioned in one of his rap songs. And Summertime. Matter of fact, it was called Summertime, the Fresh Prince song. And he mentions the Belmont Plateau in that song. And I remember being at the Belmont Plateau when this would come on the radio, man. And all our friends that knew us would come up and say, yo, that's your song, man.
That must be so cool.
Yeah, really good.
Who did the vocals?
That's Barbara Walker. She's a premier vocalist around in the Philadelphia area. And and it's funny because she's the only vocalist we ever had that could actually do that song and make a performance out of it. Everybody else that we've had tried to do that song, it just wasn't, you know. It just wasn't really.
Yeah.
So she's the only one that could really make a performance out of that song.
Were you playing percussion on there?
A little bit. That was mostly Doc Gibbs.
Okay.
I'm playing drums.
Yeah, I knew you played drums. I was just wondering if you
I did play a little bit of percussion. A couple.
Yeah. Well, that's such a great track, you know.
Yeah, it's very it's kind of like mellow but grooving, you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, right away, there's a funk beat in that song. It's just it's not clear, smooth jazz. It's kind of nice.
It's actually kind of a pop vibe to it.
Yeah,
because the beat is so straight.
Yeah.
So you know, but that was our very first single, and that was a song that actually made the mark for us in the radio industry and in the performance industry, basically too. So.
Well, I want to play another early track, that I love, Mount Airy Groove. So why don't you set that one up and tell us a little bit about that? Okay.
Mount Airy Groove was the side B of a single from our second album. Huh. It was actually the side A that was supposed to be played was called Please Don't Do This to Me, which was another Mr. Wansa song. Mount Airy Groove also was kind of like a small accident that happened. We were at rehearsal and we were taping our rehearsal. And when we had finished, we forgot to cut off the tape and we just started messing around. And when we played it, when we were like, oh man, we left the tape on. So we listened back to it and some of what came out to be Mount Airy Groove was on it. So we decided to take it, mold it, and shape it into what Mount Airy Groove actually turned out to be. And so we put out Please Don't Do This to Me as the single, the first single on the second album, and then side B, which, back then it was vinyl. So side B was Mount Airy Groove. Well, the record company calls Grover and says, listen, all the DJs are flipping the record over. So listen, I need you to go back in the studio. I need all y'all to go back in the studio and cut a 12-inch of this. Mount Airy Groove. So that's what we did. So Mount Airy Groove ended up being the second single from the second album. Please Don't Do This to Me was released as the first single, but didn't last long because Mount Airy Groove kind of pushed it out of the way.
Yeah, when the Beatles came out with their first song, I Want to Hold Your Hand with side B.
Right. Okay.
It wasn't supposed to be side A.
So this is not the first time that's happened. So.
No, it's not the first time. But let's play it. It's a great track. So let's play that now for everybody.
Sure.
That's just great. I love that. I love that Mary groove.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I just want to say thanks to Alice Banks for the compliment also.
Yeah, yeah. I have. There's a few listeners. I'm going to be posting up their comments. They're coming in now. So, and we have quite a number of listeners. And I just want to let all the people know, if you just tuned in late, this is Curtis Harmon from Pieces of a Dream, and Curtis is a drummer and co-founder, and one of the originators of smooth jazz. And we've been talking about the fact that they do smooth jazz and everything else. So they do R&B. They got some funk going on. They got pop. So they're
we even got some songs with Latin vibes to them. So
exactly. So everybody, you're welcome to Curtis again. And
you know what? You know what? Here's a fun fact for you. There's a rap version of Mount Airy Groove that we put out also.
Really, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's a rap version of that too. Because Grandmaster Flash, when he heard Mount Airy Groove, he did a rap version, and the record company didn't want his version to mess with the sales of our version, so we ended up doing a rap version too. So,
wow. Okay, I did not know that also.
You should try to find that when you can. It's probably on YouTube somewhere.
What I'd like to move to a little bit, eventually you end up with EMI Blue Note, and you did 7 albums while you were there.
Right.
Why don't you talk about your evolution? Was the music changing? Was the composition of the band members changing? Let me just make one more comment. I don't want to monopolize the conversation, but horns became much more prevalent in my mind as the years went on. I hear a lot. Okay, so why don't you talk about this period from EMI and Blue Note a little bit?
Okay, so at EMI, Grover is the one that brought us to EMI. Okay, and we became really good friends with the president of the EMI at the time, Bruce Lundvall. He became one of our very dear friends. God rest his soul. And when he was at EMI, he loved us so much that he just kept us putting out albums and albums and albums. But then they switched him over to Blue Note to be the president of Blue Note. So he just took us right with him. So we ended up over, and when our deal was up with EMI, Grover went to another label, which I think was Asylum Records, if I'm not mistaken. And then we went over to Blue Note. And so Bruce Lundvall, he loved us so much. He actually became our kind of record company dad kind of thing, So he just brought us right with him. Wherever he was, we went to. So we went over to Blue Note. When he made the change to Blue Note, we made the change also. Because we were only on a 3-record deal with EMI anyway. So,
were you striking out in any different directions, or were you just evolving more of the same? What were you doing during that period musically?
I think Pieces of a Dream as a group is ever evolving anyway. But at that time, yeah, we were evolving. Let me see. Let me think. EMI. We put out Joyride after Imagine This, which right. Imagine This featured 454, right? 455. Yep. Then we put out Joyride. Then we put out Makes You Wanna after that. Then was it, I think, about that time, if I'm not mistaken, was after that. So we did a certain amount of albums while we were still on, because I think our first album with Blue Note was Goodbye Manhattan, which featured what's the girl's name? Eva Cassidy. On that album, on that CD. So, but we definitely did a lot of work with Bruce Lundvall while we were on the 2 labels that he was president of. But our sound evolved because James and I tried to update our sound every chance we got. With the newer equipment that came out, we bought the newer equipment, and updated our sound. Even with the musicians that we got to play with us, you know, we searched for better and better musicians in each era of our career.
You know, do you still record in analog or digital?
No, we're all digital now.
So you don't use analog anymore.
No.
Okay, you don't. You know, I know a lot of artists like the analog sound because it's a little smoother.
Well, it depends on what it calls for.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't actually have any analog equipment in my studio, but if I need something that's like analog, like say a Moog or Mini Moog or something like that,
Right, right.
I know where to get one. So you know what I mean. So it's not that I don't choose to use or that I don't want to use it. It's just that I'm in what I'm writing today. It just doesn't call for it at this particular point in time.
Gotcha. You know, okay. Well, we talked a little bit about the technology, but what influences during this period, musical influences, do you recall were producing the kind of the more of an edge or a different kind of sound for pieces?
Mm-hmm.
Were there any? Can you tell us about any of those musical influences you might remember?
As far as people or as far as equipment?
People. We talked about equipment.
Herbie Hancock was one. Chick Corea, even Stanley Turrentine. Grover, I think, was our biggest influence at that time. And I mean, but we were influenced with people like, we worked with Guy, his crew, Teddy Riley's crew. We've worked with Diodato. We've worked with Jeff Lorber, Greg Gaines, Michael Jackson's music director at one point. I mean, there's so many people who influenced. George Duke, we had a chance to work with as far as writing and producing with. So I mean, our list is long as far as influences, but we've had influences as far as not just writing, but our playing also. Like for me, Max Roach and Mickey Roker was an influence when I first started. Bobby Durham, drummer for Ella Fitzgerald band, was one of my biggest influences. I had local Philadelphia influences like Philly Joe Jones on drums. This guy named Dave Gibson, Daryl. What was Daryl's last name? I can't remember Daryl's last name, but these are guys that played with my father's group too, and also taught me. But Maurice White, Phil Collins, a lot of Dennis Chambers, Billy Cobham, Alphonse Mouzon. There's a whole list of drummers that influenced my playing. So, but as far as me as a musician, the biggest influence I had as just an all-around musician, as a writer, arranger, and producer and all that is my grandfather. His name was Curtis Harmon also. Oh, he was a music professor at Temple University who started the jazz improvisation program at Temple University when they didn't have one. So he introduced that curriculum to Temple University, and he actually asked me a question one day that I did not know the answer to. And he was like, okay, you're a good drummer and you play fluently, but what do you want to do with your musical life? And when he asked me that, and I couldn't answer that question, I was like, wow, let me think about that for a minute. And then after about 2 or 3 weeks of thinking about that, and I told him, I said, I want to be a writer and a producer. So he taught me, number one, he was a pianist and a vibist. And my father was a vibist and a pianist. So my grandfather had me taking college music harmony and theory when I was only in high school. Matter of fact, had me, Cedric, and James taking college theory harmony when we were only in high school. So I learned a lot early. And because he was my grandfather, I had private lessons in piano and all of that just when I visited him. So, so he was my biggest influence as far as being an all-around musician, writer, arranger, producer, and stuff like that.
Yeah, some of the drummers that you mentioned, would just, major influences on so many people's music. You know,
Mhm.
yeah. So
Yeah, because there's a lot more drummers writing now.
exactly. And you know, Phil Collins, you mentioned, and
Yeah,
he wrote almost all the music for Genesis.
So
Yeah. And he was doing vocals, writing,
yeah,
arranging.
yeah, yeah, and that's who kind of I try to pattern myself after. Guys like that who are doing multiple things, not only on stage but in the studio too, right
Right.
in the background that people don't even know we're doing. You know.
Right. Yeah. When you guys left, um, you had left Blue Note, and I
Mm-hmm.
think it was around 2001 or so.
Uh-huh.
You signed with Heads Up.
Yes.
Why did you leave Blue Note and why Heads Up? What's
Uh Let me see if I can remember back that far.
testing your memory tonight?
I think we had run our course with Blue Note. I think Blue Note was evolving into something else that did not complement, and us too couldn't complement what they were trying to do. They didn't complement what we were trying to do, and we probably didn't complement where their direction was going also. So we felt, I guess, we needed a change, and Heads Up at the time wanted to pick us up. So when you're being sought after by a record company,
Yeah.
if the deal is right, then go
Yeah.
for it. You know what
Sure.
I mean? Because not every deal is right. So, but that one happened to be right at the time. So
Yeah. There's one of the songs I want to play is Acquainted with the Night,
mm-hmm.
and that's one of the songs that you did during that period, right?
Yeah, I think that's a song that James wrote.
Yeah. Let me see if I have that one here. I hope so. No, I don't have it. I wanted to play that. I really love that song. Okay, I didn't load it for tonight. But
Okay.
that was a song on your silver anniversary, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah, I think 25 years. Yep.
Yeah, you had, was it Ronnie Jordan that you had,
Yeah, he
and
was on that album. He
Lisa?
played Philly High, I think was the song that he
Yeah,
played. Yeah.
yeah, but that whole album, you also had Mesa performing. Is that right? On one of the songs.
Yes. You and I think was the song called.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I've had Mesa on the show also, and she talked about that song, doing that song with you guys.
Mesa's a great girl. I like she has a new single out now that's really nice too.
Yeah, she's been really busy lately, like you guys are too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And you also had,
we've been blessed with a nice schedule this year, and able to hit a lot of places that we were not able to hit in the prior years. Well, one, because of COVID, and two, because we didn't, I guess we weren't as popular at the time. I think because we've been hitting more places now, our popularity's beginning to rise again. So
yeah, I think you're absolutely right. You even had Gerald Albright.
Blessing.
You had Gerald Albright perform on that during that period too, and some of your music, didn't you?
I think he did one or two tracks. Yes.
Yeah, and Kenny Blake.
Yep. Had Kenny Blake on that. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you had 2 top 5 singles, from that period. Do you know that?
Say that again.
You had 2 top 5 single hits.
Yeah, but don't ask me what they were because I can't remember what they were.
I don't. I remember you had a couple of. I just remember you had a couple of top hits. I don't recall the exact songs either, but that was a very productive period for you during those years.
Mm-hmm. Actually, in a couple. Matter of fact, actually, if I can remember correctly, we had more than a couple of top 5 hits in that stretch with Shawnee. Heads Up.
Heads Up. Yeah.
So, and because one of our albums debuted at number one of the singles debuted at number 1.
Well, you followed that. You had Love Silhouettes came out during that time, and No Assembly Required, and Pillow Talk.
Right, right.
You guys were just knocking out album after album after
Mm-hmm.
album from
A Head to the
2001.
Past was another one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you were doing like an album a year or more.
Yeah. Yep. We were at that time. And I think, the one problem with that, I think, is that when you do albums that quickly and have material ready that quickly, I think it doesn't give the previous album a chance to get enough. You don't get a chance to get enough singles out of the previous album. And I think it kind of overshadows the previous album when you come out with something new. Like, personally, I think any album, depending on how good the writing and material is, could get 3 to 4 singles out of it if you space them, every 5 to 6 months. You can get, I think you could get 2 years out of an album and then follow up with another album after those 2 years are up. You know what I mean? And I think that would be getting the most out of any project that, that you put out.
No, I think
stuff right back to back like that. I don't think you get enough. I don't think you get the longevity that or the life out of the album that's possible to get.
I think you're absolutely right, because when you put out another album, people turn to that and you don't get enough time to get the play you should be getting from the previous album. You're absolutely right. So it's interesting, but an album every 2 years seems to be the way to go.
I think it works perfectly for us. So
Yeah.
Plus, you get to tour that album. If you could get 3 to 4 singles out of it, I think the album has done its job and run its course.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Let me ask you this question, Curtis. We're talking about now a period into the 2000s already. We're moving into we're talking about your music, the second decade of 2000. What changes have you? I think there's been just major changes from 2000 on. It was almost like a break between a lot of the traditional music and traditional technology, and how music is distributed, how music is played.
Okay. Well, okay. So we've left as of I think the mid 90s, we left the wax era, right? Got into so you got cassette tapes, 8-track tapes in the 70s, right? And early 80s. Then you went to cassette tapes.
Right.
Then you went to
CDs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then, and I think now we're at the end of the CD age, because streaming and downloading has taken over everything. Music, movies, TV, everything. It's all about the streaming and downloading now.
Yeah, so, the streaming's even knocked out cable.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Hey, exactly. I'm a prime example. I stream. Only reason I still have cable is for internet.
That's right. That's right.
That's about it. So.
That's right. But when you think about the changes,
I wish I had been on the in on the Fire Stick thing and made some what's the word I'm looking for? Investments in the Fire Stick. Well, I'd be a rich man by now.
Well, Curtis, these changes we're talking about, a lot of them, going from CD to streaming, was a major change. And because when there were no more CDs, there's no more record labels. That's really what happened, if you think about it.
Well, we still have the record labels. It's just how they sell the material now.
But it's also what they do for artists compared to, and it's they used to do A&R, and they put you out on the road.
Yeah, that's actually almost non-existent now.
Non-existent.
Now we're hiring independent promotions, but I'll tell you what it did do for artists. It allows us to independently do our own projects. And even if we do go with a record company, it still allows us to call our own shots. You know, we can still do our own promotions. We can still basically dictate what we want the singles to be like. You know, what we want our singles to be, and you know, and I think if it continues to go that way, I think the artist will make out a lot better than we have in the past.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. You know, you guys tour. You tour a lot. You know, I had on my show Brian Culbertson, you know, who runs, and I think you participated, I think, in his own festivals. And you know, so he runs festivals. He does.
Yeah, we did in Napa Valley with him.
Yeah, Napa Valley, and he does one in Chicago too. But he also does. He tours and he records. You know, and if you're doing what you're doing, and you're doing like what Brian's doing, both of you,
right?
You know, you have multiple sources of revenue and multiple sources to garner new fans. But if you just try to put your recordings out there, unless it goes viral, it's really tough to develop a career. You know, if you're not touring, you know,
especially these days, yes.
Yeah, see, you know, you have to tour these days. You have to be more entrepreneurial. And you know,
the touring and concerts is our mainstream revenue, unless you're somebody like Quincy Jones, you know.
Exactly.
So, I mean, that is your mainstream of revenue, because, I mean, the rule of thumb is out of sight, out of mind, you know. So the more you make yourself accessible to the public, the better off you're going to be, and the more the more I guess in the public's mind and you're going to be. So
absolutely,
the more you're in there, and the more you're out on the road, the better off you are, because you're because you're in plain sight of the public. You can pick up you satisfy the old fans, pick up the new fans, and you know, keep it moving.
Yeah, you know, but in these days, if you're let's say you're a young cat getting into the music industry, how do you get your music played? I mean, it used to be that the record labels, you know, there was payola, and the record labels would get to the stations and the DJs, and that whole world has changed. And you know, today, go ahead.
I think some of that still goes on at times, but I also think that, you know, it depends on the material, whether the program directors and even the disc jockeys even believe in what you're putting out. Also, it depends on what you're putting out, you know, whether it sounds current, whether they can feel that it can make a dent in the radio world or internet radio world, you know, because if it has to be strong. If it's not strong, then it's not going to get played. So
you're absolutely right. And you know, when you talk about, you know, the internet radio and some of the changes that have occurred in internet radio, one of the big changes, because it's global, when you have vocalists, it becomes a harder sell than an instrumental, because when it goes
not, because I think vocalists have it a lot easier than instrumentalists, because vocalists can actually get played on R&B radio depending on what the product is, even if it's, you know, more of a jazzy type. Like, think of people like Sade, think of people like Phyllis Hyman and Anita Baker, people like that. Now Sade and Anita Baker, I think Sade is probably more pop, but Anita Baker is more smooth jazz in the vocal industry. Even Al Jarreau, people like Al Jarreau, more smooth jazz, but he got played on R&B radio. Bill Withers, same thing.
Yeah.
R&B, you know, so these people can get played more than on a radio station, because if you look at it, let's just face it, there are really no more smooth jazz stations on actual radio. I mean, except for like Watercolors on satellite, right?
Yeah.
So, but city to city, you don't have any smooth jazz radio stations anymore.
No, you don't. But you know, the artists you're talking about were really free streaming, and now when you have internet, what I was pointing out was if you have a vocalist who sings in English and that
Mhm.
is being played, let's say, in China, they don't understand the words, and it's easier actually to get a large audience when
Uh-huh.
there's no vocals these days because it goes in so many countries in so many languages. That you're absolutely right about, Sade and Bill Withers. Back in those days, yeah, if you had a vocal, you can get played a lot,
Mhm.
more than you could probably just being an instrumentalist. But now it's reversed.
Well,
And-
let's
and
not, let's not forget the genre of rap music, which is vocal, very vocal genre.
Absolutely. Look, I mean, hip hop and there's rap,
Right,
but
right.
but
So,
but now, like Afrobeat is really catching on.
so is the
And
indie. So is the indie beats.
yes,
Mhm.
exactly. And I just think that one of the things that the internet has done, it's allowed kind of for a diaspora effect. That
Mhm.
so many different kinds of rhythms and instruments now are being integrated into music because
Right.
it's becoming global.
Mhm.
And I think that's where pieces, has an evolving future all the time.
Well,
Because
because we listen to a lot of different stations. I listen for like the Groove is a station on um, a Sirius XM. All right, I listen to that. I listen to Watercolors. I listen to Heart and Soul. I listen to a bunch of different stations to get a. I even have the one of the kids stations because I got grandkids. I have one of those programmed in my radio also because
yeah,
because they like it. But when I was listening to some of it today, because I have them right now with me, and I'm listening to the beats they're playing, and I'm loving it. I'm like, man, that's funky as all get out. So now I just done put some other ideas in my head to write some stuff that sounds kind of like that. So um, as we as musicians go through different experiences and hear and see different things, that's inspiration to write differently. That's inspiration to write
absolutely.
broad spectrum. You know what I mean? So
You know
it's
what?
what you're going to get out of any given musician. I write stuff that's on mostly, I think, a very funky vibe. But then I have like these mellow Latin songs that I've written, like "Feeling Good," like this song "Caribbean Nights," like a song I wrote for my wife, "Wherever You Are." You know what I mean? And people weren't used to hearing mellow stuff like that coming from me. James was the mellow guy. You know what I mean? So, but I kind of try to pride myself on being versatile in my writing and producing. So,
What you had somebody here making a comment. You should re-release some of your older tracks.
well, thank you, Noni. I
Yeah,
will see what we can do about that. And also thank you too, Charlotte.
yeah. Just a lot of people making comments.
Well, we do have a couple of. Let me see. One is called "The Best of Pieces of a Dream," and then there are two like kind of other CDs that are remakes. And when the name of those come to me, I'll tell you what they are.
Well, I mean, this has been really great because I think a lot of people who are listening in, and we have over 70,000 people right now listening in.
Mhm.
I think one of the things that's coming across is you love music,
Oh,
and
most definitely. I mean, well, I'm third generation musician, so it was kind of I was kind of born to it. It's in my blood.
I
Uh,
mean, but to see your excitement, you
yeah.
know,
Oh, yeah, man. And it's funny because I think I actually like being in the studio more than I do on the stage. So, because I mean, it's that thing of creation that really I think drives me to do to do what I do. Hold on, let me see.
yeah.
Yes, Curtis, do you have plans to infuse your style of music? Infuse it with what?
I think we were talking about Afrobeat and some of the other.
Yeah, because I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I've infused it with a couple things, a few different things already. So, but yeah, as I hear different other things, I try to always infuse my music with those new things that I hear. Like
What's on your plate right now? What's the most recent?
Well, I mean, we're doing a new album now, so I'm trying to do something that's actually, a lot of people still like go-go. So,
Yeah,
currently working on a track like that.
Chuck Brown stuff.
Yep, Chuck Brown type stuff. Also trying to do something that's probably with the more indie beat. So,
Terrific. Looking forward to that.
What's gonna come out of what's gonna come out of me. I also got some stuff that's leaning more towards pop too. But still with the instrumental saxophone head.
Okay, now I have another kind of question for you because maybe it's what I heard in your music. It also, more recently, you did Just Funking Around and Fire.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Were those a departure in your mind in any way from the previous work you were doing?
I think they're more of a transition into a more updated sound from Pieces of a Dream.
Yeah, I agree.
It still has that smoothness. It still has that edgy funk. But it has all the newer sounds that kind of tickles the ear a little bit more. Well,
let me play one more song, and then we'll kind of start to wind down. This song that it's called "Feeling Good."
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's one of my favorites, man.
Yeah. So let me play that, and then why don't you set it up? Why don't you tell people a little bit about it?
This song is one that I wrote with. I'll tell you what. This song is one. My guitar player, Chris Harris, said he had never written a song before. And so I said, I'll tell you what, because I've written with just about everybody else in Pieces in the group, and except for him. And at this time, I said, you're going to write a song on this album. You're going to help me write a song on this album. So I set up the rhythm track and everything, got the background stuff done. And I told him, I said, I want you and Tony to come up with the melody for this song. And when they came up with it, it was a beautiful melody. Chris came up with an awesome Spanish kind of guitar or island guitar theme for it. And man, it just blew me away. But when Tony and Chris came up with the hook for this, I heard this sound. Every time the hook played, I heard like somebody walking along whistling this melody. So I found a sound that sounded like a whistle, like somebody whistling, and put it on there. And it just kind of boosted the track to what I wanted it to be. And I love it. And this one's called Feeling Good.
Yeah, and when you say Tony, who you're referring to?
Sax player, our saxophonist.
Yeah, I feel I knew that. I just wanted you to tell everybody else.
Oh yeah, Tony Watson is our sax. Matter of fact, let me just name all our group members. We have incomparable David Dyson on bass. We have Alex Simon on percussion, who is from the hit Broadway show Stomp, and he also MCs a bunch of shows around the country and is also an inspirational speaker. We have, of course, Tony Watson Jr. on sax, Chris, who's also plays with Lindsey Webster and a few other artists. But luckily, Tony's allegiance has been to this group for the last 14, maybe 15 years. He's played with Pieces of a Dream. David's actually been with us longer than Tony.
Yeah,
he's been with us for about 17 years, I think.
Where did he come from? He came from New Kids on the Block, didn't he?
Say again?
Didn't David come from New Kids on the Block?
Yes, David was the MD music director for New Kids on the Block. Yes.
Yes.
We also have, let me see, Chris. Yeah, Chris Harris is our guitarist, who's a guy from Atlanta, who we met actually when James and I played at a club down there, and we used a backup band, and Chris was part of that backup band. And gotcha. This cat, it's funny because Chris is the only white guy in our group, and we call him White Chocolate because he is so soulful. And when we called him that, he got such a kick out of it. He said, "You know what? You got to keep that name for me." So,
That's great.
with it, and and he loves it. So every time we introduce him on stage, we call him White Chocolate. He loves it. But Chris is one of my closest friends. He's such a great guy. But and we have a new female keyboardist, Carolyn Brewer, who's actually from your area, the Baltimore area, and she does vocals and keyboards for us also. So
wow.
and she's a great talent, man. She's really plays her butt off and can sing. So she's a really great talent. We're just trying to find that one knockout song for her to really sing. That we want to add to our show. So we started doing the song "Turning It Up," which features basically instrumental head and background vocals. But we're trying to find that lead vocal song for her to sing. So anytime in the near future, looking out for her to be leading the band on vocals. So
yeah, you guys haven't had a lot of vocalists working with you over the years.
No, we haven't had a lot of luck with lead vocalists in the past. So we decided that when it presents itself the right way, then it'll happen. So, but it just hasn't presented itself the right way, and we think this is it with her. We just got to find the right song for her to sing, whether it be something we write or whether it be a cover song. You know what I mean? Just something that really displays her vocal talent in a way that would complement the show.
Wonderful. Well, let's play "Feeling Good." I love this track. And
okay.
then
Thank you. So it's one of my favorite tracks too, and they like I said, Chris and Tony did a bang up job on the melody, and I love it. So
great. Wow. Yeah. I love that track.
Thank you. And it's funny because this is the kind of stuff that we would like smooth jazz to also play. I mean, I like the funkier stuff by us and everything because we have fun doing that in concert.
Yep.
But I mean, our general audience and people who want to hear other stuff from Pieces of a Dream don't get to hear stuff like that. I think that's it's a shame that I was talking to, I don't know if you know Jay Lang.
Who?
Jay Lang.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He works at he does the Hampton radio station in Hampton, Virginia, and we were talking today, and he said, I love you guys singles and everything, but I really love your album cuts, that other people don't play, So and he's one of the few guys that actually goes off the beaten path to play some of the album from us, other than you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
And there's a few more of you that you guys from internet radio and other radio stations around the country that'll do that. And and I want to tell you how much we appreciate the fact that you get some of the whole album out there for us and not just what the quote unquote single is.
Exactly. Because you're absolutely right. Very often there are so many tracks that are as good, if not better, than the single release that nobody gets to hear. Because they don't play it, and they play what is hot at the moment, and they
right.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Ron, for that compliment, by the way. Ron Ledford.
Do you know who Ron is?
Not exactly.
Ron,
I never met him.
Ron works with a great vocalist named Beth. Beth works with Kem.
Okay.
And Ron's a good friend.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Ron. Thank you so much. Yeah. So I mean, I think that Pieces of a Dream has so much more to offer than just the funky stuff, and I just wish, more radio would play more of that stuff also, and it's cool to play the single because, we obviously like our singles too. We love our singles too, but
sure.
I think if playing more of the album, I think gives people more of a broader spectrum of what we're about musically. Which a lot of people don't know. So,
Well, look, I mean, in the sense you're preaching to the choir. I wanted to do internet radio, even though we're connected to 9,000 affiliated stations through the BBC, and we have a lot of terrestrial stations who pick up our music and iHeartRadio. But the reality is, I can play your whole album every day. I don't have to play top 10, and internet radio is a great place now for music that isn't being played on urban radio. And urban radio predominates FM now, and like you said, there's no more blues channels. There's no more blues channels, no more smooth jazz channels.
Right.
But I can play the whole thing, and I can do an hour interview with you, not just a 10-minute interview, so people can get to hear your music and get to know you. So, I'm so grateful to have you on this show second time.
Well,
I can't thank you enough.
To be on this show, man, because I thank you for taking the interest in Pieces of a Dream. But through it all, we've become good friends too. So I mean, I really,
definitely,
this is a relationship that I really appreciate also. So.
Thank you. I do too. And you made a lot of new friends and fans tonight. I can tell you right now.
And I appreciate them also. But don't forget, everybody, come out to see us at Lake Arbor Jazz Fest on July 14th for the Summer White Affair. And I think that starts at 7 p.m.
That's right.
p.m. 6
p.m. I think it's either 6 or 7 I don't remember myself.
But I don't think we actually
6 p.m. There it is.
Yeah. Until 8. So 8:15.
The doors open at 6.
Right, doors open at 6 though. So it's going to be a blast. We're going to be dressed in all white. The audience is going to be dressed in all white. So if get your white together and come on out.
Definitely, your white chocolate.
It's funny because we were talking a couple of minutes ago. I'm thinking to myself, I wish I could start a radio station that plays everything except the singles.
Well, here's what you do. Go get on my station with your show. You can have your own show, and you can spin whatever music you want.
Wow.
You should have your own show.
Don't tempt me because I may take you up on that.
Hey, be my guest. I would love it. I would love it. You can spin whatever you want and really introduce people to a lot of music.
I mean, and I think the public deserves to hear what they're missing. I really think they deserve to hear what they're missing.
Absolutely.
So they can make up their own minds what good music is.
Absolutely. You know, we'll talk more and we'll have you back on the show because it's a pleasure. It's a blessing having you here. I thank you again.
Always a blessing to be here. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to wrap the show up. If you want to stick around, we can talk for a minute afterwards.
Sure. No problem.
Great. All right. Well, look, everybody, this is Curtis Harmon from Pieces of a Dream. Be sure to come out if you're in the Maryland area for the Lake Arbor Jazz Festival. And we're going to be putting up a lot of their other dates where you can come out and see Pieces perform. I've seen them many times, and you're missing a lot if you haven't been to one of their concerts. So again, Kurt, thanks so much, and we'll be talking soon.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, man. Thank you. And I just want to thank all of our fans who've been with us, because the one thing we didn't mention on this show today was that Pieces of a Dream, as of this year, in October, will be together 47 years.
Wow.
So, I mean, James and I have been at this for a very long time, and it's only because of people like you, because of our fan base, and because of the radio stations that play us, and all the people who love to hear our music. We thank you so much for being such a blessing to us and extending our careers to this level, to this time.
Well, I'm definitely going to have you.
Without you, we couldn't do it.
I'm going to have you back for the 50th anniversry for sure.
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be great. Then we had something to really talk about.
Yeah, definitely. All right, take care of yourself, Kurt.
All right, take care, Mel. Thank you.